By a show of hands, who among us would consider themselves to be shy? We're a small group here. You can't see that on the camera. We're a small group. For those of you that raised your hand, you're not alone. There's actually a Shyness Institute in the U.S. that did a study about 2 decades back, and they determined that some 40% of North Americans considered themselves to be shy. That was 2 decades back. Now, we're of the belief, the research seems to be saying, that some 50% of North Americans consider themselves to be shy. Now you would think, or at least I would think, that with all this social media, the interconnectedness that we have on the internet, the so-called 6 degrees of separation that we used to have a few years ago, where you were connected by a series of 6 degrees of connections, it's down to 3 degrees of connections. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You think now we'll be more connected. What's happening is we're having an opposite effect. People are becoming less social. They're becoming less comfortable in social situations. And they've been able to determine what the causative factors for this so-called shyness, what's causing it. You think back to, we have a pretty young audience here. Half of our audience is younger. Now, to the older members of our audience, do you remember back to Leave It to Beaver? Mm-hmm. Leave It to Beaver. Anybody see Leave It to Beaver? Never heard. Leave It to Beaver was a sitcom in the 60s. And black and white, of course. But it was a traditional American family. So what happened almost in every show, the father, Ward Cleaver, he would come home from work. He'd be dressed in a dress suit because he has a job, white collar job, where he has a dress suit and dress pants. He would come at the door and he would be met by his wife, June Cleaver. Now she was a stay-at-home housewife, stereotypical at the time, white dress on, perm, her hair was in a perm, and she'd have a string of pearls. She'd wear pearls around the house. She would come in, she'd kiss her husband at the door. They would sit down, the family, Leave It to Beaver. So Beaver was the youngest and Wally was the older son. They would sit down there as a family unit and they would discuss what happened in their daily life. What happened when Ward, the husband, was at work, or what the boys did when they were at school. They did, and that was traditionally the way families were in the late 50s and the early 60s. Family dinners. Along comes television. Up until that point, people gathered around listening to the radio. They weren't really communicating. They were listening to what was going on because you had to focus. Along came television. People started watching television. But the family dinner was still there. It was still in place. And then, late 50s, along comes something you're probably familiar with, Swanson TV dinners. You ever heard of TV dinners? Well, what happens with the TV dinners is that people, the family, would now sit on these newfangled inventions called TV trays, and they would watch television. Well, there went any form of communication. They didn't talk with each other anymore. So they started losing the skills. Family members started losing communication skills through TV dinners. Let's fast forward a few years. Some of you might remember Walkman. Remember Walkman? Walkman had a cassette in it, and you could play your own personal cassette music. You had earphones, you could walk along, and they were still fairly bulky. You could have them in your pocket and walk along and you could just listen to your music. Fast forward a few more years, along comes Discman. A little bit bigger, but you were able to put a CD in there. You didn't have to worry about your tape breaking because your CD was solid. And you had your earplugs on with the wires. It was a lot easier than carrying those great big boom boxes that were around back in those days, which you thought it was great. You were the center of attraction, but not necessarily everybody liked or enjoyed the music, boom, 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 that you were playing. Fast forward a few more years, MP3 players. They were the size of, almost the size of this remote control. You could have an MP3 player in your pocket and have hundreds and hundreds of your favorite songs. You didn't have to carry the big bulky CD. Then fast forward a few more years. So right now, most of us walk around with smartphones. With a smartphone, you can literally have thousands of songs, podcasts, audio, video, your home entertainment system in there. So what happens, now you see it, is take a look at any bus stop. What you will see, some 20 people like this, earbuds in place, everybody staring at their screen, and doing the best to try to not make eye contact with anybody in that group. Heaven forbid, what would they do if they actually made eye contact? Because they've lost the skills. They've lost the social skills. And we've seen the genesis of over the years. So now that we have, what's next after iPhone? I say what's next is we look after our shyness, do something about it, and start building our skills. So does anybody have a working diagnosis, working definition of what shyness is? What would you call shyness? In your mind, how would you describe shyness to somebody else?
I don't know. Underconfidence almost in a way. I don't know.
Inability to
Underconfidence?
communicate with others?
Yeah, what's this?
Inability to communicate
Yeah.
regularly with others. Or having difficulty.
Yeah.
Or avoids, maybe they can, but they avoid it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Lack of confidence.
Yeah.
Very well. You're all around it. You're all around it. The working definition that I use is a lack of social skills. It's a lack of being able to go out in public and communicate with others. That's all it is. But it's manifested by fear, and that's where the problem is. Now, the good news is that shyness is, I don't want to use retreatable, but you can become unshy. It takes time, it takes work, and it does not necessarily take a pill. Big pharma companies would have you believe that shyness is a psychiatric disorder, and they just happen to have a medication for it. A few years back, when they discovered the antidepressant Paxil, they found out that people on Paxil were a lot more outgoing. Prozac is another one. They found out people were more outgoing. So guess what? If you're shy, we'll give you this pill, but it's not a psychiatric disorder. It gets complicated. Shyness gets complicated. Introversion. What's introversion versus extroversion? It's probably something many of us talk about all the time. Does anybody have a working definition of what an introversion is, or what an introvert is to start off?
I would say is somebody that more so keeps to themselves.
Yeah, that's a characteristic. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, a characteristic of it. Somebody who isn't so loud and vocal, or I don't know.
Any other ideas?
I like to think of it as a bit of a scale, and depending on where you are in the circumstances, you can go up and down on that scale. And some people might have a propensity to lean more towards that way towards one end of the scale than the others. I know myself, I identify as an extrovert, but when I've been out and about, I like to then become an introvert afterwards, right? And vice versa, right? I definitely need that introversion time.
The base definition or explanation that I work with is it's really a matter of where you get your energy from. As you said, if you are an introvert, you like things to be quiet. You like to be by yourself. You recharge your energy. Could be reading, could be spending time on the computer. You do not like going to large groups. Or if you do, they drain you. Going to a conference drains you. As soon as you get away from it, you can go to your hotel room and recharge your energy. Extroverts are the opposite. They power up, like the Energizer Bunny, from going to large groups. They love going around, mingling, networking with people, talking to people. So what's it better? Introversion or extroversion? What's it better?
Which is better?
Yeah.
It depends on the situation.
Yeah, they both have strengths and weaknesses.
Well,
In networking, extrovert.
When I first, this wasn't part of the presentation, but when I first started researching this book, I was researching networking, and I found that most of the articles were written from the perspective of extroverts. If you're an introvert, suck it up, buttercup, be like us. That was the flavor of almost all the articles that I read. I thought, no way. Extroverts may think that they are the way to run the world, but that's not the way things are. Bill Gates, introvert or extrovert?
I would guess it.
Highly introverted. Seems to have done well for himself, wouldn't you say?
So far, so far.
Because he knows what his strengths are, and he got somebody else. He hired smarter people than him to do it. Perhaps there's a lot of extroverts. So that's an example. So introverts versus extroverts. So, are you an introvert? Are you?
I think I am.
I think I can be in certain ways. I'm the same as you. Like, I go between the two. Yeah.
What's your base or what's your default?
I don't know. I want to say extrovert because I'm very like but
Okay, well, as Matt said, I think there's a point. You have a little bit of this. It depends on the situation. There's going to be a slide coming up here that kind of explains that. I'm a pure introvert. I was an extremely shy introvert through much personal development. I believe now that I'm an introvert that's out of the closet. So relation to some people.
Love it.
So I'm an introvert out of the closet because some situations I will definitely be introvert. I spend a lot of time in my head on the computer. You know, I create content. I do speeches. Some people are absolutely terrified. A lot of the articles and or questions I answer in Quora are related to how do I do this? How do I do this? Some people are terrified. I recall one individual, he came out to one of our Toastmasters meeting. And you can see when he came in, he was quite nervous and shy. And I got to know him over the year, and he became a better speaker. And he told me, towards the end of the year, that if he had been asked to introduce himself at that very first meeting, he would have just got out and walked out and left because he was so shy, so anxious. A year later, I wouldn't say he was an accomplished speaker, but he was quite a bit more comfortable. We found out that his big why, or his motivation to speak, is he wanted to get the courage up to tell his domineering wife that he was leaving, which he did. I talked to her later, and she's not fond of Toastmasters anymore. We talked about being shy in some situations and not so shy in others. Extremely shy would be that fellow. So if you go to a networking session, you can tell the extremely shy people, odds are the extremely shy people aren't there because they've backed out of it, they've chickened out, they're not there. But if they have to be there because their manager, their boss has told them that they have to be there, you can see that they're going to be the people that are on the side of the room, not necessarily talking to anybody. Their phones are out pretending that they're busy. Because that's an awful lot easier than getting out there and meeting somebody and networking. The other end of the continuum is you've got the people that are not too shy. They may not be overly comfortable in a situation, but they know some of the people. If I go to a function, let's just say they're not too shy, let's say it's a Toastmasters function, and I know all the people, well, I'm not going to be shy. Because I'll know the people, I've got something in common. But if I go to something, sort of perhaps a downtown business association meeting, and I don't know anybody, I'm going to be closer into the middle. I'm going to be reluctant to, what I don't like is walking into a threesome or foursome, fivesome, people talking among themselves. Hi, I'm Ray. Where do you go from there? That part would create anxiety for me. But in a situation where I knew people, I might not be so shy. You can't read that. It says, hi, I'm Ray, I'm shy, please talk to me. 10 years ago, I was elected as the district governor for District 21 Toastmasters, which at the time was the entire province of British Columbia. So I had a direct team of a couple hundred people that I oversaw as their leader, And then each club has 7 officers. So I had 1,900 people, club officers and executive leaders that I was responsible for, as well as the rest of the district. I had 2 people that had preceded me in the position. They were mentors to me. And I had 2 people that were below me that I was mentoring them. Here I am, the shy introvert, extrovert, 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 extrovert. Their idea of what a leader was and what they wanted me to do was they wanted me to get out there, pom-poms literally, act as a cheerleader, rah, 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 getting everybody excited, singing songs, leading the troops, you know, just having so much excitement. Well, it ain't going to happen, and it didn't happen. So the one person who was higher up on the food chain, she came up with this idea, Ray, what we're going to do is we're going to make you sign. It says, Ray, says, hi, I'm Ray. I'm shy, please talk to me. They wanted me to go out in the crowd at a conference, my fellow Toastmasters, to do that. Well, that never happened. That never happened. And that was at the time, after that, I decided to start researching networking and doing something about it. That takes us into power networking. Has anybody ever heard the term before? Besides me? Power networking, in some sense, has had a bad reputation. After I wrote my original book, I've done about a dozen workshops and seminars on power networking. These are for people that are out of the job market, getting back into it. They're looking for changing their career, looking for work. And I asked them, do you go to the local networking groups? And there's at least 3 or 4 in our community. And they said no. Well, why not? And their biggest reason was that there are certain class of networkers there that would hit upon them. It was kind of like fresh meat. They didn't like it. And when you broke it down to the job demographics, one was financial planners, realtors, and insurance agents. So what I call those from my other research, we call them sharks. They're not power networkers. They may have been told in their training, you got to be a power networker, you got to get out there, you go to an event, you got to make the sale on the spot, you got to make the kill, take the kill home. So I call them sharks. And guess what? Everybody that's there, they're fresh meat. So that was one of the reasons that people didn't like going to local networking, because of these shark attitude. Another one is that, I don't know if you've heard it before, but you go to networking to meet people, right? However, that's meet, M-E-E-T. Some people believe that it's a meat market, M-E-A-T. They go there to score. And a lot of people that are there for business purposes really do not, I've never been hit on, but a lot of people have been hit on and they find that uncomfortable. So that's not how power networking is. Power networking, okay, power networking means the power that comes from a spirit of giving and sharing. Has anybody ever heard of BNI? Business Networking International. It's the leading business networking group, and it started off by Dr. Ivan Meisner. He has this belief that givers gain. So when you're going to a networking event, you're not there to take something back from somebody, you're there to give. It's the law of reciprocity, law of attraction. What you reap, you sow. You put it out there and it comes back to you. The same thing applies with business networking. You're out there, you're helping people. So the spirit of giving and sharing is what is in this. Secondly, to be powerful as a networker, you must acknowledge and appreciate the power of networking and your power as a networker. A lot of people go and don't like networking because they feel like they're imposing upon people. And as a power networker, you should look for opportunities to contribute your ideas. When you're networking, one of the biggest, well, getting a job, the best way to get a job is somebody knows you're looking for one, getting out there and networking. So when you're networking, by helping other people, by being a person of value to them, giving them a resource of sort, you raise your stature in their mind, and they can recommend you to somebody. You could be looking for money for a project. You could be looking for staff or employees for a job project that you have in it. You could be looking for a job yourself. But if you don't get out there and network, and nobody knows about it, you're not doing it. That's really what power networking is about. This is the book that I'm releasing tomorrow, Power Networking for Shy People, How to Network Like a Pro. In the book, we're way past the time we had, but in the book, there's basically, I've identified a strategy system that has 3 phases of networking. Pre-networking phase, live face-to-face networking, and post-networking. So in the pre-networking phase, without going into a lot of details, I believe as an introvert, I believe as a shy person, you can do a lot of your stuff way before you even go to the networking event. And that in turn can help reduce the pressure on you, reduce your anxiety. If you're not anxious, you can be productive and effective at those networking sessions. Find out who usually goes to them. Check them out on LinkedIn. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Find out their backgrounds. Find out what their interests are. So when you know they're going to be there, and you meet them in person, you have something to talk about. That makes life a lot easier. In the pre-networking phase, that also is setting up your LinkedIn profile so people that can find you. That includes having a good headshot professional photo. That includes, one of the things I get into is, one of the problems people have, and I had at the beginning, was shaking hands. Hi, I'm Ray. I didn't know what to say next. So there's a whole chapter on questions you should answer. These are questions about your business. Why are you here? You can expect those kind of questions. Tell me about your business. How long have you been in business? What prompted you to get into that kind of business? Then there's questions you should answer. People are rude. People answer, how much money did you make last year? How much income tax did you pay last year? And then you should be prepared for one of the, you may be familiar with them, one of the worst questions you can ask. Is it true you stopped beating your wife? You heard that question? That's a no-win question. If you say yes, well then you were beating your wife. If you say no, that means you're still beating your wife. So you can't win. So there are versions of those questions that are set up for the questioner, make them look good, make you look bad. So these are some of the questions you need to be prepared for. Even if you're doing public speaking, you need to be prepared for. The simple answer is to that question is, I'm wondering why you asked that question. That diffuses it. Okay, next question. You move on. With the live face-to-face, we talk about having, do you have your elevator pitches? Do you have an elevator pitch?
Sort of.
I would challenge you to develop 3 or 4 of them. 30-second, 60-second, 5-minute, perhaps a 10-minute elevator pitch. Now that seems ridiculous. You're not going to go for a 10-minute elevator pitch. Most opportunities, so here we could have done a 30, we did a 30-minute, 30-second elevator pitch here. If you go to any of the business breakfast groups, they allow you a minute. And that's because they have to allow enough people time to do their presentations. You get 60 seconds. But what if you're at a session where you got 2.5 minutes? Are you prepared for that? What if somebody said, you know, I was really impressed. I'm really impressed what you had to say there, Courtney. Tomorrow morning we're having a breakfast group. Can you come and share with us your business? We want to hear what you do. 10 minutes. If you don't know, it's an elevator pitch, it's long, but if you don't know your stuff, your story, who would? That's some of the stuff we talk about. Even getting into handshaking, that's in there. Post-networking phase, what happens after the interview? Or sort of the conversation. You meet somebody for the first time, you have a brief conversation, you share business cards. It's not enough time to have a long chat. You set up a coffee chat. You meet with them, coffee shop like this. Spend some time, get to know them, find out if there's any value in spending any more time with them. Looking to see if you can offer them and they can offer you anything. That's part of the coffee chat. And then even following up with connections. A lot of people do not follow up. They meet somebody at a thing, they get a handful of business cards. They come back and they look a week later. Oh, who's that? I don't know. You phone them up. Oh, I met you at a chamber meeting. It's Ray. Ray who? I had to follow it up within the first day or so, maybe. So it goes into a lot of detail in the book with that. Oh. We're in. Any questions? About networking? Shyness?
Hey, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Ray.